A woman discovers a friend in an inconspicuous homeless man who ends up improving her life when she unsurprisingly loses her job. Sitting by herself at a busy cafe, Lila's thoughts were focused on the recent developments in her life. She was a gifted nurse who had put in endless hours at work, but her combative supervisor, Mr. Thompson, abruptly dismissed her. She felt discouraged and unsure of her future as a result of the strain that her financial difficulties and job loss had placed on her shoulders. Lila was looking into her half-empty cup of tepid coffee when a rumpled man approached her table and caught her eye. His clothing were ragged, and his suspicious eyes showed the trials he had surely been through. She found out later that the man's name was Jack, and he bravely asked Lila if he might take the last of her coffee. Startled by his request, Lila forced a grin and said, "Yeah, I wasn't going to finish it anyhow." "Have a seat, please." Grasping the warm coffee in his hands with gratitude, Jack took a seat across from Lila. He could tell Lila was upset, so he gently urged her to talk about her concerns. She opened out to this odd confidant with a mix of relief and vulnerability. "I lost my job as a nurse recently," Lila said, her voice a little melancholy. "One day I couldn't contain myself any longer since my supervisor was so annoying. I confronted him and spoke my thoughts about him clearly. I lost my job as a result of that act of rebellion, and I'm currently struggling to make ends meet. It is unjust to my patients that I was unable to say goodbye, and I too miss them." Jack listened carefully, his sympathetic gaze fixed on her. He was aware of the anguish of adversity and the significance of life's unanticipated turns. He gave Lila words of consolation and encouragement with steadfast compassion, telling her that obstacles frequently led to better chances. Lila was moved and a little taken aback by Jack's generosity and insight, and she was filled with appreciation. In a spontaneous gesture of gratitude, she called the waiter and placed an order for Jack's food and a new cup of coffee. As they sat together eating a basic supper and talking passionately, Lila was encouraged by Jack's unflinching optimism. "You know, if I were your boss, I would hire you in a heartbeat," he said in a playful manner. "Your spirit deserves a workplace that values you because you are an exceptional nurse." The sound of laughter appeared to have been missing from Lila's life for too long. Despite their seeming casualness, Jack's remarks struck a deep chord with him. They rekindled her optimism by letting her know that her abilities and commitment were appreciated, even if her former employer didn't notice it. Lila had a feeling of purpose flashing in her eyes as she guided Jack to the door as the dusk got too close. "Thank you, Jack," she replied, taking his hand in a moment of profound gratitude. "You'll never realize how much you've given me. You've rekindled my passion and reminded me of my value." Jack's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he was moved by her remarks. "It has been a privilege to be here for you, Lilia. But never forget that the world needs individuals just like you. You possess the ability to change things." Lila knew it was time to return home as the evening sky became darker and long shadows stretched over the streets. The coffee house had given her a moment's relief from her anxieties. She was aware that she would be walking for 20 minutes. The area wasn't the safest at this time, and it was late. She was ready to pack up her things and say goodbye to Jack when he inquired about her destination in town. Lila brought up her neighborhood, and to her astonishment, Jack disclosed that he shared it. "Why don't I walk you home?" Jack said, and Lila smiled. "You won't have to travel alone that way. Isn't there safety in numbers?" Lila accepted his considerate gesture, and they headed out into the dark streets together. What began as a lighthearted chat in the cafe turned into a profound sharing of experiences and tales. As they strolled hand in hand, Lila talked about her goals as a nurse and the difficulties she encountered, while Jack related personal stories that demonstrated a depth of fortitude and insight that contrasted with his current situation. They were kind, humorous, and supportive of one another. Lila was warmed by his being at her side and barely noticed the passing of the minutes. It was almost miraculous how much lighter the trip home seemed. They had developed a link via their chat, a sincere connection Lila hadn't anticipated that day. Upon arriving at Lila's house, she turned to Jack with a look of thanks. "I'm grateful, Jack. You have been more than simply a walking companion tonight. You have listened and understood, and you have been a great friend. How much it means to me is beyond words."
Jack grinned, the reciprocal admiration evident in his eyes. "The pleasure was entirely mine, Lilia. Meeting someone who genuinely sees you and accepts you for who you are is uncommon. Keep in mind that I believe in you and that you have what it takes to get a new career. Remain optimistic and never give up." Lila said goodbye and entered her house with a fresh sense of drive and purpose. Jack had raised her spirits and given her the courage to take on the obstacles that lay ahead. She knew that their paths had crossed for a reason, and she was thankful for the unanticipated relationship that had developed on that fateful day. "Tomorrow, I'll begin my job hunt with optimism and determination, and I'll treasure the memory of this evening, knowing that real friendship can be discovered in the most unexpected places," Lila muttered to herself as she shut the door. Lila woke up the following morning full of renewed self-assurance and a zest for life. She sipped her morning coffee, got on her computer, and began applying for nursing positions right away. She saw a job opening at a prominent medical facility that radiated competence and professionalism. She applied, but as she clicked the submit button, she was overcome with self-doubt. She questioned if she was qualified for this role. But then she recalled her night with Jack and the deep conversations they had, and her confidence returned. Lila had no idea at the time that a major surprise was in store for her. Lila had the shock of her life when her doorbell rang as she was still applying to a lot of jobs throughout the morning. When she opened the door, she saw a dapperly dressed man standing next to a glossy black limousine that was parked outside her modest home. With a kind grin, he said, "Good morning, ma'am. Dr. Jack is the reason I'm here." Curiosity mixed with bewilderment, but Lila knew she had to know what it was. She got into the limousine and was driven off. That morning, they reached the highly regarded medical clinic where she had recently submitted an application. Lila was shocked by what she saw when they reached their location. Jack actually owned the facility, the guy in the action disclosed. "I have to say, Lila," the man said, "Jack was really moved by your kindness and compassion. He wants to honor you for your exceptional traits." As it happened, Jack was a well-respected physician who had been feigning homelessness as part of a social experiment. Jack himself came out without a second's hesitation, looking proud and well-dressed in a suit. "Lila, I have personally seen your compassion and understanding. Offering you a full-time job at the clinic with a compensation commensurate with your abilities and commitment would be an honor." Lila's eyes filled with tears of happiness as she was overcome by the surprising turn of events. As Lila accepted Jack's kind offer, her voice wavered with gratitude for the chance. It was an opportunity to not only start again, but also to keep changing the world for the better. Lila never forgot the lessons she had learned from her experience with Jack as she adapted to her new career. Acts of compassion and generosity were rewarded by the world, frequently in surprising and remarkable ways. She decided to keep embracing empathy, compassion, and the strength of real human connection in all areas of her life, her heart full of appreciation. How do you feel about this motivational tale? Tell us in the comments section below.